All right, so you've given us a really interesting stack of materials to look at today, all about becoming a music instructor. Looks like these excerpts from RoleCatcher are going to be super helpful for our deep dive today. So, thinking about inspiring some young minds through music.
Absolutely. And it's a lot more to it than you might think at first glance.
Yeah, like more than just plunking out chopsticks on the piano, right?
Way more. It's not just being an instructor, you're a mentor, you're a guide, almost like a musical therapist in some ways,
Yeah.
especially when you think about those specialized music schools, the conservatories.
Okay, now those always sound intense to me. I always think about those scenes in movies, like Whiplash, where it's all crazy rehearsals and rivalries. Is that really what it's like for a music instructor?
Well, I mean, you're not totally off base.
Yeah.
There is some truth to those portrayals, especially at those top-tier music schools. Conservatories are definitely known for their, let's say, rigorous approach,
Yeah.
very focused on classical music, performance-based disciplines, but it's not all cutthroat competition and drama.
Oh.
These places have this amazing sense of community, this shared dedication to music.
So less like a reality TV show, more like a really, really good orchestra.
Exactly. Everyone there, the students and the instructors, they live and breathe music. It's a real melting pot of talent.
Okay, that actually sounds really cool, but I imagine it's also super demanding to be a music instructor in that environment. So how does that all work? Like, what's the typical career path look like for someone who wants to get into that world?
So RoleCatcher lays out a pretty clear progression, starting with a trainee position. That's where most aspiring instructors get their start.
So like an apprenticeship, basically?
Yeah, exactly. It's all about hands-on learning. You're assisting the more senior instructors, getting a feel for how a music classroom really works.
Makes sense. You probably wouldn't want someone straight out of music school just thrown into a classroom with no experience, right?
Right. And speaking of experience, the source material really emphasizes this, supporting the students, monitoring their progress, working closely with those more experienced instructors. So you're learning by doing, basically.
Got it. So then you move up, right? What's after trainee?
So as you get more experience, more confident, you typically become a junior music instructor. That's when you really start to, spread your own musical wings.
Less assisting, more leading.
Yeah, you got it. You would be leading your own courses, guiding the students as they're learning instruments, or vocal training. It's like conducting your own mini orchestra.
Oh, okay. I like that. So what's the next step? Just a music instructor, what does that actually look like day to day?
That's when you become a real curriculum architect. You're designing and teaching entire courses, maybe even specializing in something like music theory or composition or performance. You're not just teaching notes on a page at that point. You're helping them really understand music.
I bet that takes a ton of not just musical knowledge, but also knowing how to actually teach that. Like every student's different, right?
You're totally right. The sources really emphasize this. You have to be able to adapt to different learning styles. Think about it. Some students, they might learn visually, really connecting with notation and scores. Others, they might be more auditory learners. They get it through listening and playing by ear.
Oh, yeah. That's like that theory of multiple intelligences, right? Where everybody has their own strengths. Didn't, wasn't that Howard Gardner who talked about that?
That's exactly what I was thinking. He said that people have all these different ways of learning, different strengths. And a really good music instructor, they wouldn't just teach from their own perspective. They'd create this whole, like, symphony of learning experiences that cater to all those different intelligences.
Oh, I love that. So instead of everyone just sitting at music stands, you might have like kids clapping, stomping their feet, maybe even making up songs about what they did at recess.
That's it. That's the kind of creativity you want to encourage. And along with adapting to those different styles, you know what else our sources emphasize?
Yeah.
Building strong relationships with your students. You're not just this, like, musical knowledge dispenser. You're a mentor, someone they can trust, sometimes even a cheerleader, when they're struggling to hit those high notes.
So empathy is like a key qualification for this job. You have to connect with them as people, not just musicians.
Exactly. And we can't forget the music world is constantly changing.
Oh, tell me about it.
Huh.
New tech is popping up every day. It's like, what even is an instrument these days with all the digital stuff?
Right. So how do you, as a music instructor, how do you keep up with all that change?
Good question.
RoleCatcher says it's all about continuous learning, always trying to learn new things. Maybe that's diving into the latest music production software, bringing virtual instruments into the classroom, even teaching students how to write their own music with those digital audio workstations.
Wow. Okay, so we're talking about kids making film scores, writing EDM tracks,
Exactly.
composing for video games.
There you go. I mean, the possibilities are kind of endless.
Yeah.
And speaking of going deeper into things, remember those special certifications you were talking about earlier?
The
The ORF, Kodali, and Suzuki methods.
Oh, right, right. So it's like specializing even within music education. What are the big differences between those?
Each one has its own philosophy, its own method. For example, the Orfer approach, you see it a lot in early childhood music education. It's all about creativity,
Yeah.
improvising. This whole integrated approach where you're bringing together music, movement, drama, even speech.
So like a musical theater crash course, but for toddlers?
Pretty much. Then you have the Covalli method, which is really big on singing as the foundation for musical development. They use this whole structure and system of solfege syllables and hand signs to teach kids about pitch and rhythm.
That's fascinating. It seems like each of those certifications would give you like a specific set of tools to use depending on the student's age or how they learn best.
Exactly. They show that you're really committed to your craft, to really understanding how to teach music effectively.
Totally. So let's say someone's hearing all this and they're like, sign me up. What about the interview process? What kinds of questions should someone be ready for if they want to be a music instructor?
Ah, the interview. Well, RoleCatcher actually has some really helpful examples, these sample questions, that give you a sense of what they're looking for. Imagine this. You're sitting there in the interview, and they ask, how would you handle a disruptive student during a performance?
Hmm. Oh man, that's a tough one. Do you stay calm and try to address it subtly, or do you just stop everything and deal with it head on? There's no easy answer to that, is there?
It all depends. A good music instructor has to be able to think on their feet. You probably want to talk about different strategies, maybe using nonverbal cues or gently redirecting the student, but also emphasizing how important it is to talk to them before the performance, lay down the ground rules.
So you're showing them that you've thought about these situations, you have a plan, even if you need to adjust it in the moment.
Exactly. Another one they might ask is, how do you measure how well your students are learning in your classes? This is where you talk about all the different ways you can assess their progress, beyond just grades. Things like performance-based assessments, looking at their portfolio of work, even having students evaluate each other.
It's about looking at the whole picture of their musical journey, not just if they can play the right notes.
Yes. And then, of course, they might ask, how do you incorporate technology into your teaching?
Okay, that one I'm ready for. I'd talk about using all kinds of software, notation software for creating and sharing scores, virtual instruments so they can experiment with different sounds, even those online platforms where students can share their compositions, get feedback from each other.
Those are great examples. You clearly get how important it is to use technology to make learning fun and interactive.
Oh, yeah. Especially with kids growing up surrounded by technology, it just makes sense to bring it into the classroom.
For sure. But beyond those technical skills, beyond the tech, hiring committees are looking for people who really, truly care about music education. People who want to nurture that love of music in their students.
You have to have that spark yourself, right? It's contagious. Speaking of which, RoleCatcher mentions some amazing resources for music educators. They talk about the International Society for Music Education, ISME, and the American College of Musicians. Have you heard of those?
They're fantastic resources full of information and support for music teachers. ISME, for instance, they have this global network of music educators from all over the world. They're all about making sure that music education is accessible to everyone and using music to help people understand each other better.
I love that. It really drives home the point that music is a universal language. It can bring people together no matter where they're from.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a really interesting point. You know, a lot of what we're talking about today focuses on traditional music education, those established career paths.
Yeah.
But things are changing fast.
You're right. I mean, just look at how many online music lessons and virtual bands are out there now. Even AI writing music. It's like the walls in the classroom are disappearing and people can learn from anywhere these days.
Exactly. So where does that leave the music instructor of the future? What are the opportunities and challenges they'll face in this new digital world? It's a really exciting time to be thinking about these things. It really is. And it makes you wonder, right, how might the role of a music instructor change as things become even more digital? What new opportunities will open up and what new challenges?
Well, like we were just talking about, online music lessons are huge already. Virtual bands, too, and even AI getting in on the composing action. It's almost like the traditional classroom is dissolving. People can learn from anywhere.
Exactly. Think about it. Music instructors could become more like online course creators, designing these amazing digital lessons for anyone in the world. No more geographical limits. They could share their knowledge with anyone, anywhere.
Oh, wow. Okay, get this. Virtual reality concerts. Students could learn from these world-class musicians in a virtual concert hall, maybe even playing in an orchestra with a, like, hologram conductor.
Now you're thinking outside the box. The potential is incredible. But we do have to think about the challenges that come with these advancements, too.
Right, like how do you build those human connections when everything's virtual? The mentorship, the feeling of being part of a musical community, those are all so important.
That's the big question, isn't it? And it's something music educators are wrestling with right now.
Yeah.
How do you balance the convenience and accessibility of online learning with the value of actually being together, of getting that individual guidance from a teacher?
It's a whole new world out there, that's for sure. But from what we've seen in these RoleCatcher excerpts, music educators are incredibly adaptable. They'll find a way.
I agree. They are passionate about sharing their love of music. They'll figure out how to make it work.
I can't wait to see what they come up with. This has been such an interesting deep dive already. You know, you've almost inspired me to pick my clarinet back up. Maybe it's not too late to live out that childhood orchestra dream.
Never say never. Who knows, maybe you'll be leading your own virtual orchestra someday, sharing your musical talents with the world.
Ah, we'll see about that. But seriously, this has been so eye-opening. We've learned so much about what it means to be a music instructor. It's this amazing blend of passion, artistry, and this dedication to teaching the next generation.
Well said. And as we wrap up, here's something for everyone to think about. If music really is a universal language, what new ways will we find to speak it in the future of music education? What creative approaches and technologies will shape how we learn, create, and experience music in the years to come?
Now, those are some questions to ponder. A huge thank you to everyone who tuned in to this deep dive with us. Until next time, keep the music playing.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? With all this new technology, how will the role of a music instructor evolve? What new opportunities and challenges will come up?
Well, we already touched on online lessons and virtual bands exploding in popularity. We've even got AI composing music now. It's really blurring the lines of the traditional classroom you can learn from anywhere these days.
Right. Think about it. Music instructors could become more like online course creators, designing incredible digital lessons for a global audience. No more geographical limitations. They could share their expertise with anyone, anywhere.
Oh, wow. Imagine virtual reality concerts. Students could learn from world-renowned musicians in a simulated concert hall, maybe even playing in an orchestra with a hologram conductor.
Now you're thinking outside the box. The possibilities are really quite incredible. We have to acknowledge the challenges that come with these advancements too, of course.
Right, how do you build those all-important human connections when everything's virtual? The mentorship, the camaraderie of being part of a musical community, those are so important too.
It's a crucial question. It's something that music educators are grappling with right now. How do you balance the convenience and accessibility of online learning with the irreplaceable value of face-to-face interaction and personalized guidance?
It's a whole new frontier. But you know, reading through these RoleCatcher excerpts, it's clear that music educators are a resourceful and adaptable bunch. I'm confident they'll find a way.
I agree. They're passionate about sharing their love of music. They'll figure out how to make it work. I'm sure of it.
It's an exciting time to be involved in music education, that's for sure. This deep dive has been so fascinating. Thank you. You know, you've almost convinced me to dust off my old clarinet. Maybe it's not too late to chase that childhood dream of playing in an orchestra.
Never say never. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be leading your own virtual orchestra someday, sharing your musical talents with the world.
Huh? We'll see about that. But in all seriousness, this has been so insightful. We've learned so much about what it takes to be a music instructor. It's a wonderful blend of passion, artistry, and dedication to teaching the next generation.
Well said. And as we wrap things up here, a final thought to leave you with. If music truly is a universal language, what new ways will we discover to speak it in the future of music education? What innovative approaches and technologies will shape how we learn, create, and experience music in the years to come?
Those are some amazing questions to ponder. A huge thank you to everyone who joined us for this deep dive into the world of music instruction. Until next time, keep the music playing.